A Journey from System Builder to Survival Scientist Part 2, number 1627, 5/5/2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, Category, Self-Reflection. Surface appearance versus underlying structure. Another important pattern in my thinking is the distinction between surface appearance and underlying structure. I have repeatedly observed this same principle in high-tech business, engineering design, financial, investing, medical research, AI applications, political and legal systems, and even social media culture. Most people naturally react to visible symptoms and surface-level appearances. I usually try to understand the deeper governing mechanisms underneath of visible behavior. Traditional medicine often focuses heavily on symptoms, laboratory-tested snapshots, or isolated biomarkers. My attention gradually shifted more toward underlying system behavior, including homeostasis, cumulative load, system instability, volatility, trajectory drift, delayed feedback, adaptation limits, and long-term structural deterioration. I also learned that in almost any complex system, whether a semiconductor chip, a financial system, an industrial system, a geopolitical system, or a human vascular system, failure is rarely caused by a single high-load event alone. The real danger usually comes from instability, repeated fluctuations, accumulated damages, poor recovery capability, delayed correction, and the inability of the system to return to equilibrium after disturbances. This realization became especially important after my stroke. I eventually came to view stroke not simply as an isolated medical event, but more like a system-level buffer overflow or a single-point failure event that had not been sufficiently mitigated beforehand. Once I understood the problem from this structural viewpoint, many things became much clearer to me. My medical research direction, lifestyle control strategy, and long-term survival philosophy became more coherent and internally consistent. From growth to survivability over time, the objective function of my life also changed. Earlier in life, my system was optimized primarily for growth, including wealth creation, engineering innovation, company scaling, and business expansion. Later, especially after severe medical conditions, such as heart attack, kidney failure, and stroke, my optimization target shifted more toward persistence, survivability, durability, redundancy, resilience, and long-term stability. From a systems viewpoint, I gradually shifted from maximizing short-term gain toward minimizing long-term disorder, system instability, and structural deterioration in physics. These behaviors are often associated with entropy. Once this transition occurred, much of the common noise in society, such as institutional prestige, external validation, vanity, fame, influential power, interpersonal competition, and public recognition, became unimportant to me. My focus became much clearer. Identify the variables that truly influence my mortality risk and control them consistently every day. This is why I have focused on personalized medical research. At the same time, I also began realizing that intelligence alone is not enough. Knowledge alone is not enough. Real understanding often comes from lived experience, suffering, long observation, repeated failure, pattern recognition, and survival itself. Many of the most important lessons I learned in life did not come from textbooks. They came from selling off my established high-tech companies, surviving multiple health collapses, rebuilding my health repeatedly, observing my long-term life trajectories, and continuing forward despite uncertainty. My greatest comfort comes from knowing the some patients have benefited from the medical knowledge I have shared. Business investment, risk, and long-term stability. The same structural thinking also shaped my financial investment philosophy. I diversified my real estate investments across multiple cities and countries, including Taiwan, Japan, Canada, Texas, Silicon Valley, Las Vegas, and Hawaii. To reduce single-location risk, I focused more on durability, survivability, inflation resistance, and long-term growth compounding instead of short-term speculation or excitement. Whether I was managing a global real estate portfolio across different regions or managing post-meal glucose spikes after eating, I was fundamentally dealing with the same core problem: risk distribution, system stability, redundancy, stress control, adaptation, and long-term survivability. The same laws across different systems. Over time, I gradually realized that many of the governing principles repeat themselves across engineering systems, business environments, financial investments, biomedical systems, and even geopolitical systems. The domains may appear different externally, but the underlying laws remain surprisingly similar: load, stress, feedback, delay, compounding, instability, trajectory drift, adaptation, redundancy, and eventual failure thresholds. The laws of physics do not suddenly change simply because the underlying medium, whether engineering or medicine, changes. Long-term trajectory thinking. Perhaps one of the deepest realizations of my later life is that most modern society focuses heavily on still snapshots, short-term reactions, headlines, and surface appearances. My own thinking gradually became increasingly long-term, trajectory-oriented. I became more interested in longitudinal direction, curvature changes, accumulated strain or damage, delayed consequences or recoveries, and long-duration system behavior over decades instead of days. This long-term viewpoint also influenced my charitable work. Since 1995, I have supported educational scholarship programs helping more than 10,000 underprivileged students attend colleges because I believe long-term trajectory improvement is far more important than temporary relief. Education changes the direction of a person's life trajectory. Conclusion. Today, my medical research, engineering mindset, investment philosophy, charitable activities, and survival philosophy have gradually merged together into one integrated systems perspective. Looking back now, I no longer see my life as separate chapters of engineering, business, medicine, or investment. I see them more as different manifestations of the same underlying search. How complex systems survive, how instability accumulates, how failure emerges, and how intelligent intervention can sometimes redirect each trajectory before irreversible collapse occurs. Epilogue. I hope this article becomes one of my stronger self-reflection pieces because it connects my engineering years, my AI and computer systems background, my high-tech business experiences, my business operations and investment philosophy, my medical research, my recent stroke recovery, and my more than 30 years of humanitarian efforts into one continuous life trajectory instead of isolated stories. It also explains something important that many readers may have sensed before but could not fully articulate. My medical research minds did not suddenly appear in 2010. It was built gradually across more than 4 decades through the same underlying structural thinking style. Looking back now, I realize that many different chapters of my life were actually connected much more deeply than I originally understood. Although the external fields appeared very different, the core thinking process underneath remained remarkably consistent. Identify the dominant variables, understand interactions, monitor trajectory behavior, reduce instability, and improve long-term system survivability. In many ways, my medical research journey was not the beginning of a completely new direction. It was the continuation of a lifelong systems thinking journey, eventually applied to the most personal and important system of all, human survival itself. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.